RaaRaa originated from a guy called Curtis Joblin. It was his idea. He actually has sort of a long history in stop motion animation. He did the design work for Bob the Builder, and apparently he came up with the idea one day when he was driving along with his kids and they were playing a game in the car of Old MacDonald's farm, and then they ran out of farm animals to do, so he changed it to sort of jungle animals.
There is an organisation called ICANN that found that about half of the kids coming into preschools in England have fairly impoverished speech and communication skills. And we thought, well, this is a really good idea to put together this show about animals making noises and find a link between encouraging children to make a noise and to express themselves.
Welcome to the jingly jangly jungle.
What really appealed to me about RaaRaa was the fact that it was really educational, but really entertaining. I mean, the kids will be educated, but they won't know that they are being. They're just going to have fun.
The process of sort of turning one of the sketches into puppets is fairly long-winded, but essentially we start with a sculptor who creates a character in plasticine, and he'll start with a rough sculpt, which we call a maquette. When that's approved, they move on to what we call a finished sculpt, and that will be sculpted in a neutral position. Once that's complete, it goes into moulds. We make a mould of it. Then the armature maker's set to work, and an armature maker creates a steel skeleton which fits inside the character. That steel skeleton gets put inside the mould and filled up with silicon, so then we end up with a skeleton inside a silicon body and a silicon head. Then it goes off to be painted. Then we stick on little bits of felt and various other things to create fur textures, for example on RaaRaa's head. And then pretty much it's ready to go on set. The RaaRaa puppets were taken approximately 16 weeks from beginning to end, so that's relatively quick for some of our characters. Sometimes they can take up to 6-7 months to make. Because we shoot the show with 6 animators over in the studio, any of our puppets could be in 6 different sets all at the same time, so we make multiples of each character. So once we've finished making all of our puppets, and I think there were nearly 40 of them made for RaaRaa, we turn them over to the guys in the studio and they can start shooting the frames and making the television shows.
An episode will take 2 weeks, but that's if we had every animator working on the same episode at the same time, which obviously we don't because we have more than one episode in the studio. Once we've set up the shot and the camera department have done their side, we'll call in the art department.
The sets were all built in-house, so after we got the initial designs through, we had to consider lots of things to do with scale and use for the animators so that they could actually reach the puppets to animate them, but also just things like the puppets actually had to fit through the doors. They had to be able to, like on RaaRaa's house, he has a swing which because of his enormous head we had to modify because otherwise he couldn't actually reach the side pieces with his arms. In a typical day we can dress anything from 1 or 2 sets to 8, it does depend, and yeah, some very busy days you will be running around the studio all day and dressing 8 sets one after another.
There's always a place for stop motion because although CGI has come along and it's, you know, everybody seems to be doing everything in CGI, stop motion is always there, and I think there's a certain craft and a nice hands-on approach to it that I think will always endure, and how that goes into the future is whether it's people start doing more of it in their own sheds or the basements, or whether it becomes even more popular on television as well as at the cinema is still to be found out, I think. But I think it's always going to be here because it's a very lovely medium to work in.
Bye! See you soon!